Yo, what is up, everybody? Chris here from Esports News, Axe Rotation, however the flip you know me in these interwebs, and I will be bringing you guys a quick preview of what to expect going into Week 3 of Stage 2 of the CDL. I laughed because I just absolutely blew y'all's eardrums out. My bad. The mic is really close to my face. You know, we move. Anyways, speaking of people who are absolutely dead wrong, I think that anyone who supports the Royal Ravens in this series will be dead wrong. Because some news to announce, Spart is now in the opening lineup in place of Cammy. So let's go to, let's not go to the store. I already have premium. Let's go to G-Stake. So I'm currently writing an article about G-Stake explaining what it is. As you guys know, I'm a member of the COD Stats team as a writer as well. So if you guys don't know, G-Stake is the wagering platform here on COD Stats. It's completely free to play. You basically come here, you get the free G-Stakes that you can claim every day, 500 free credits. I claimed mine earlier today, so that's why there's no claim button. But anyways, you can say, like, let's say, for example, we believe Boston Breach is going to win this matchup on this channel. We are supporting Spart. So we'll say we place 588 of our 6,288 G-Stakes creds on this matchup. See how it does on Friday. Sorry, I had to take a quick sip of the seltzer. Anyways, I think it's going to be a Game 5 for this new Boston Breach team. I think with Spart, they're going to be really good. I really do. I feel like with Purge, especially coming off of a week last week that was kind of interesting. Let's look at week 2 to see how Boston did, right? So, of course, they got 3-0 by Thieves, but then they lost in 3-1 fashion to the Vancouver Surge, which was high cause for the splitting of that team, right? So, speaking of high cause for potentially splitting up teams, we have two teams that are kind of in a weird place. Obviously, FaZe just got smacked by G2 in that Game 5 loss, where Caesar Skies invested in his game and subsequently divested in the FaZe stock, sending it right back to 16 cents. Anyways, the Riyadh Falcons are kind of in a similar spot. If they have a series that's not too encouraging, I definitely could see this team potentially hitting the panic button and making a change, bringing in someone from their challengers team, either Falcons White or the FaZe combo team that was recently announced. So yeah, with that in mind, I do think that FaZe are due for a regain here. Simp versus Cell, I feel like Simp's going to keep consistently winning this, just because I feel like that Falcons team, they just don't have it figured out just yet. I hope they win. That would make it more interesting, having them like inject themselves into the conversation as a series contender after having two series that go their way consecutively. Excuse me, that would certainly be interesting. So I think FaZe win it just because coming off of a rough loss to the G2 side, I feel like that team probably won't go on a skid and get worse. I feel like they'll probably practice and come back a lot better in their matchup against Cell and the boys. I mean, for obvious reasons, right? Like going up against your former teammate, you don't want any egg on your face. So, last match of the day, we have Cloud9 taking on the Gentlemates. I think it'll be a pretty quick 3-0. So let's fill all that out in Play Cracked. We'll do 5 hundo on FaZe. And then we'll do 200 on mates, because it's not a good return. So no point in placing a lot in that. So we can't do all of our play crack picks because the play crack picks, I guess, for the last matches on Sunday haven't availed themselves yet. So we'll do those like offline. But anyways, G2 versus Riyadh. I'm just gonna make a random call. I'm gonna say G2's Game 5 was like stop and then start again. I think in this series we get like a really surprising kind of jazz music stop situation, and yeah, I think G2 takes this. I'm sorry, I think Riyadh takes this one over G2, even though G2 is building up momentum. It always seems that when G2 gets momentum, they start looking like they're a consistent contender. Like they get slammed in one of these random trap series. So I'm going to bank on the consistency there. Now, speaking of consistency, I think that even with Kips, I think they probably still get the same result. I do kind of like what I've been seeing from Miami. Metals has been on one. Drake's have been popping off at different times. And then Rancor and Super have been amazing. So with a new Koi team, I feel like this team has gotten a lot better with Kips. I really like what I've seen from them. They could obviously win this, right? But I do think that the Miami Heretics, I feel like they just have an edge in the S&Ds, and I feel like that'll be the difference maker in this series. I feel like everywhere else, the overload probably goes to Miami, and then they probably take both searches. So, Battle of the Blues, Ravens versus Surge. This should be a pretty interesting one. Nero Takeover Series or Gwyn slash TJ slash Lurks Takeover. I'm sorry, Lurks. Lunars Takeover Series. I'm gonna say Lunars. I'm gonna say Lunars Takeover Series. Surge. I'm gonna support him. I'm not a big fan of Carolina from the bedroom. I feel like this is not where the magic happens for them anymore. I feel like Carolina, I don't know. I feel like they just kind of lost their mojo at this point. So I'm gonna back the Vancouver Surge to get a 3-2 here. In similar fashion, OpTic, they've been looking somewhat okay, but LA Thieves, I feel like they're just on an uptick at the moment. I feel like just based on the eye test, if I'm not being biased towards OpTic because they've looked so good all year and they're defending world champs, I think at the current moment, just seeing how they kind of struggled a little bit more than I expected against Cloud9 in certain pockets, I'm going to back the Thieves. I feel like it looks like OpTic's maybe testing something out or whatever. I know they're going to be playing their hardest to take Thieves down, but I feel like Thieves right now, especially being 4-0, getting all that momentum, bringing Niam in, I feel like they win this, if I'm being honest with you. Maybe OpTic comes out and they look like OpTic of old, but just with Hook and Shotzi and Dashy struggling to get on the same page so consistently in some of these recent matches, not so sure. So I'm liking Thieves. I'm thinking Thieves here, 3-2. So in the next matchup, of course, our first matchup of Sunday, we have the Mates taking on Toronto Koi. And I feel like this one probably goes 3-1 in favor of the Mates. Recently, they've been having a lot of series like this where you think it's going to be a 3-0 or a 3-2. Just ends up being a 3-1. They sweep the respawns, and then the other team takes the S&D. So kind of expect that to be the case here. Probably Koi takes the S&D, and then the Gentlemen sweep the respawns. So I think this new Boston Breach team, because of how vulnerable FaZe have looked, I think they're going to push them to the brink. And I think we get a Game 5 that FaZe wins in really, really surprising fashion for most people. But, bringing Spart in, Spart's always a guy who has played really well against FaZe, no matter what team he was on. Obviously, Major 2 Vanguard, right? You think back to even like C9 New York last year. Always had very competitive games with FaZe. A lot of 250, 245s in there. I mean, Spart has always just been a guy who loves playing FaZe and Simp for some reason, so I don't see that stopping here. I also think this Boston Breach team with Spart will be very, very good. I don't know if they'll be a contender. That remains to be seen. Maybe Purge needs to go as well. I was feeling like it needs to be a two-person change. But getting rid of Campy and seeing what sticks after that when you try to throw some pasta at the fridge, not a bad idea in my opinion. So I think Boston will have the depth now to take a team like FaZe pretty deep and show that they have made some serious improvements. But I think in time, they'll be able to topple teams like this. Maybe they will this weekend. Who knows? But I think it's just going to take a little bit of time. Now, C9 taking on the Miami Heretics. I think it's going to be a pretty decisive 3-0. I don't see a game mode where these guys could really outclass Miami. Miami play a little bit weird based on what Mercules and other pros say in post-match interviews. So I think against a team like Cloud9, who also is going to be playing super weird, it's going to be fireworks, but I think Miami is going to be able to control the chaos and get a pretty decisive dub. Now, speaking of decisive dubs, I think OpTic, even though this is usually where OpTic has, embarrassing, surprising losses, I think this is where they probably just get a pretty, unsurprising 3-1. Over a team like Surge, I expect them to absolutely skill diff them. I mean, team like LA Thieves, you have to have your, concerns and your misgivings about it, but team like Surge, you expect that to be a day where Mercules himself could win that series as long as everybody doesn't drop 0.5s, which now that I've spoken it to existence will somehow inevitably happen. But anyways, I'm going to back OpTic. I'm going to stand with the green wall. Let's make sure our G stakes are current as to what we have on tap at the moment, right? So we had the Riyadh Falcons taking them down, right? 3-2. So let's make that happen. Let's put 1,000 on Riyadh because that went so well the last time, right, Christopher? We're going to say Vamos in the rematch. We're going to put a rack on that. Then we said Surge, right? Said Surge, so we're going to put 500 on that. I like what I've been seeing from Surge. I really like it. They've been playing really good COD. And against a team like Ravens who look so vulnerable, I do like their chances a lot. And then we're going to let's put 1,000 on Thieves. Yeah, let's go big. Let's go big. So yeah, guys, that'll just about wrap it up for me. Be sure to sign up for G-Stake and COD Stats using promo code FSNChris for sign up. You will get, I believe, 500 free credits upon sign up using my code. And then every day when you refresh, you get 500 credits as well. So let's lock it in, as Farouk used to say. And I will see you guys tomorrow for another piece of content. Probably some roster mania stuff or some sort of topic video or whatever I think of. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, like I always say. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow for another piece of content. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, be sure to share it with someone who you think might like it. And like I said, like, comment, etc. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Once again, this is Chris from Fakes versus X Rotation. However the flip you know, man, these interwebs. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.